G'day, mate.
Yeah. G'day. How you doing? How you
I'm
going, folks?
good. Yeah, welcome to a podcast, everyone, with me and Ziggy. Honestly, I think you're the streamer I get mixed up with the most. Like the amount of times people come in my stream and they're like, "Hi, Ziggy."
Yes. Yes, I get it all the time too. I'm like, what's this?
I always like switch. I flip my camera upside down and I'm like, "G'day, mate." Well, you say still here in Australia.
My thing is to pretend to be really angry about it so that people do it even more because it secretly entertains me. But yes, I do get Ziz a lot. But the ones that actually do annoy me though is like people like ask me questions about your content. Oh my god. I
Yeah.
don't know about a lacerate build. What the hell? Like, who would play that?
Why is Ziggy mad? It's gonna infect you now.
Oh no.
I don't know
It's
if
coming
you've
on
I
me.
don't know if
Yeah.
you heard the what's happened.
I asked your chat if I should ask you any questions today,
Yeah.
and they just told me to ask you why you're mad. Why are you
Do
mad,
you know
Ziz?
why it's a thing?
No.
So, during the reveal stream, somebody in Quinn's chat wrote, "This is so mad," and then Quinn opens my stream, and I'm just sitting there like really happy, and Quinn is like, "Shut the fuck up, chat. This isn't mad," and then everybody just started playing it, spamming it, and they've been doing it since.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a classic though.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's the exact thing that I always say. Just like don't listen to that stuff on Twitch because it's nearly always made up or out of context, right?
Yeah, it's great. I am mad though. I'm very mad.
Yeah,
Um,
you seem pretty mad. Mhm. I
someone
mean, yeah, there's a
somebody
lot
was
to be mad about, right?
asking.
Right now.
True, a lot. We're very angry. No, it's great. I'm so excited. I can't believe that it's like so soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, too soon. Honestly, I know. I copped some fire from this one, but I was like, I wish it was a week away. Still, I got too much to do, man. Too
I
much to
think
get
it's just one
ready.
of those things that you're never going to be ready for.
No. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel that. Somebody was asking,
Sorry.
what does the
Sorry, Kat.
D in ZED stand for? I can't even remember.
Um, if you play your cards right, it stands for you. That's my go-to for that one.
She
Good heavens! Ooh,
spicy.
spicy.
The
It
one.
doesn't really stand for anything. It's kind of like my first name is Daniel and my middle name is Ziggy, so I just kind of like flipped them around, and the D is the initial. It was probably
Ah,
like originally like Ziggy D dot,
right.
and I just removed the dot.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But that might be like me backwards justifying it, like we do. It stands for ZD. It's short for ZD StarCraft.
Oh, wow. Apparently there were leaks on Reddit, but it's been deleted already.
Yeah, there's been so many like leaks from people that shouldn't be leaking, but I've not seen any of it. I've managed to avoid all of it.
I've
It's even
managed.
incidental exposure.
Same. Apparently, yesterday there was somebody in the NDA that were live streaming to other people, like the NDA thing. I just like somebody donated to tell me, and then I just told GGG, and GGG were like, "Thank you." I was like, "Yeah, no
Nice.
problem." It's messed
Our
up.
team is on the way.
Yeah, calling all
They have equipped
agents.
their crossbows.
Yeah, I just like it's so shitty. Like it's so soon anyway. Like just chill and wait.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one.
I love though that I'd actually like during the initial announcement with the cinematic and stuff, I'd completely forgotten that they had showed us that at the dinner. So Steele was like, because Steele saw my reaction, and I was just pogging out.
The dinner?
The VIP
The
dinner at
what?
ExileCon, they gave us like the preview that there was going to be a
Oh, the
cinematic,
cinematic.
but I'd
Yes.
forgotten about it.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
because it'd been a while. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and my memory is really bad. Like I'm rewatching Dexter at the moment. Don't remember any of it. So my wife told me like, "Oh, is that episode where this happens?" And I'm like, "Spoilers." But yeah, so and I've
Yeah.
seen it twice. This is my third time watching it, so it's great having really bad memory.
I am exactly the same. It is a blessing and a curse because yes, you can re-enjoy your media with that
Yeah,
terrible memory, that Swiss cheese memory I call it. Sometimes it's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm
but at
probably
the
gonna
same time,
rewatch Game of Thrones. I haven't forgotten the end, which is a bad thing about that, but yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, why did you forget the ending?
Yeah.
I
No,
didn't finish it. I didn't
it's a
finish it.
tough one to rewatch.
I stopped watching on that episode where you couldn't see anything. Like that's my
Yeah.
line. Like that's my line in the sand. Like anytime you just can't see what's going on. I hate that in games. Like I've stopped playing a lot of games because of that.
That was really
Just
bad
like what is this
cinema.
obsession with like not being able to see anything?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But yeah, no,
So no.
it's how long is it? It's like 2 days or something. What's the countdown at? 2 days,
No.
22
Yeah, I
hours.
try not to look at the countdown.
That's
Too
crazy.
stressful.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're playing?
Yeah, good question, eh? I'm probably gonna go with Mercenary Grenadier. Um, the old mercenary in general, crossbows, probably grenade focus.
Yeah.
It's a tough choice though. Like, there's a lot of I've definitely been wobbling back and forwards on it because like Monk was maybe the one that I have played that I thought was the most impressive.
Hmm.
I was like, wow, they've really nailed this. This is
That's the
hard.
one
This
I'm the
is
most worried
difficult to
about.
play. Pardon? That's the one you're
That's,
most worried about?
yeah.
Yeah, I get that because it's probably the hardest one for them to pull off. So the fact that I did feel like they were nailing it
That's
was
good.
really impressive because yeah, it needs to be fast and fluid and melee and like combo heavy and feel like a fighting game and yet still be playable as an action RPG and actually feel
Yeah,
good to play.
I was really worried about the combo aspect. I'm always worried about
Mm,
making that feel good because I feel like so many games haven't. So
sure, yeah.
this,
Um,
I think it can be done though. But yeah,
I like. I never really felt when I was playing it that I was like doing combos, I guess. Not in the sense that I would if I was like trying to pull off a fighting game combo where you're like trying to
yeah,
press buttons with timings.
yeah.
That's what it didn't feel like that to me. To me, it felt like I was trying to think about whatever was going on the screen and
That's good.
pick the right tool for the job. Which often that would like lead into each other. Like they would lead into each other. So it would be like, oh, this thing
Yeah,
it does combo well with the bell. For example, this skill works well with the bell. If I do this, then dropping a bell in this situation makes a lot of sense. But it seemed more contextual rather than combo based. I don't know. I don't
did
know
you
if there's a difference. Might be splitting
ever
hairs.
feel like the concern I would have because I haven't played Monk yet. It's one of the only things I haven't played because just when seeing like a preview of everything, I was like, I'm gonna play that last. Just didn't like it. So my concern as somebody that's never played it would be that I would feel like I was saving my combo too much. That I'm like holding back. Like I'm very like in everything like
Mm,
Skyrim and stuff. I never use consumables. I always like, oh, I'll wait.
yeah,
I'll wait for the next
same,
game.
same, same, same.
I'm worried I'll feel like that about Monk. Like, did you ever have that feeling or?
Yeah, I mean, I killed Sephiroth with 99 elixirs in my inventory for sure. But uh, it's I it's a good question. Maybe like a little bit with the charge system, where you get that power charge, and it's such a
Yeah,
chunky, satisfying thing to use like the lightning strike with the charges. Um, so maybe I was like, oh, I kind of don't want to use my charge here. Uh,
that's what
I
I'm worried
think
about.
yeah, I think though that was counteracted by two things at the time. Counteracted by the fact that it felt so good to use them.
Okay, that's
So
good.
like I didn't feel like saving them, and because they're inherently limited duration, that helps with
Oh,
that. Like
right.
yeah, like the charges, they expire after 10 seconds by default. It gets longer, I think, but
Yeah.
it might even be longer than that by default. Maybe it might be 20 or something. I felt like it was a long time, but they do eventually expire, right? Like you can often save them to the next pack, but you want to use them as soon as you engage if you have any. So I think that somewhat self corrects there. The other thing that they changed was after I played the monks. That was not this recent trip that I did, but the trip before that. So it was a few months ago now.
Yeah.
Start of Settlers. After I played that, I told Jonathan, I was like, oh, I was gushing about the monk bells. I was saying, there's one thing though, these like the culling skills, the fist, what is it, the palm strikes. So there's a couple of them. One's if you stun an enemy, you get like wind buffs, and the other one's if you cull an enemy, you get the power charges. I was like, these just need to be a little bit faster because like this
Right.
playstyle is nearly working, but they were quite slow. Um, and I saw the footage and I cheered because I saw like the recent footage and I cheered because
Yeah.
like they split it up massively. I asked Jonathan, he's like, yeah, they did. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
so good. So that's going to help a lot too. You won't feel like as bad about using your charges because it'll be much smoother and good feeling to actually generate another one. So I
I
think that'll help
think
that
a
too.
lot of people had like a bit of a shock almost because I think a lot of people um were in like this wanting it to be bad almost or like I am not happy with PoE 2 because we'd only seen like early game
Shame
footage.
parade.
And then we had that like explosive trailer with like loads of density, loads of killing. Like obviously it's
Mm,
still slower than PoE
awesome.
1, but it just looks good.
Yeah.
And so many people in my chat were saying that they were like very against PoE 2 and they were like thinking about not playing it. Now they're like, never mind, let's have some copium. This is great.
It's hard to it's hard to feel that in light of like seeing something that looks sick on screen, right? Monk in particular as well. Like, yeah, people like to doom and gloom melee, and like, there's no way
Yeah.
they can fix that. And I still like even so. I made videos before showing how amazing Monk was and how much I loved it. And then I did like my recent mercenary video, and people were like, "Oh, looks like melee gets the short end of the stick again." Because I seen you like killing a boss on range. Just like you kill a boss at range on a ranged character, and they're like, "Well, I guess melee is gonna die." I'm like, I mean, so I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Like clearly the melee stuff is looking very good. Yeah, some mechanics are harder in melee, but some are easier too. Like being close to the boss has its advantages. Most of the time you are. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
No, that's fine.
Especially that footage for Monk was like showing a lot of the proc-based stuff, which I think is something maybe people not even realizing about Monk is like if you like you cast on crit builds and things like that, builds that hit things and stuff flies everywhere and elemental things spray everywhere. That's Monk, right? Like even from the very early game, you're adding like extra wind attacks to your skills that are doing extra lightning attacks. Like you can stack these things on top of each other. It's so satisfying. And then when I was like, oh man, there's like this entire Ascendency dedicated to like that stuff as well. This concept of kind of like these elemental effects happening. I'm like, you're gonna be stacking triggers on triggers and things, and that's gonna be very satisfying.
I know that's my favorite thing in any ARPG. Like anytime I play like a new one and like they don't have this, I get kind of sad. Like the more they have like chaining, bouncing off walls, like anything that like modifies things. Like whenever like a game is just like you do more damage, and I'm like, I love changing the behavior of things.
You really phoned it in here, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to develop 30% more damage than it is to develop an actual thing occurring.
Yeah.
PoE's done that, built a pretty good set of that sort of thing, like actual gameplay mechanic things occurring on your characters. And PoE 2 is stepping that up a lot, which is those are my favorite. Like I've said that for the longest time. It's like the best Ascendancy nodes are the ones that have some sort of thing that makes your character feel different when it happens. Like that makes it look and feel different. Those are the ones that feel the best, or the most exciting. Those are the ones that like make you want to play that class. So I mean, that's all of Path of Exile 2. It feels like.
Did you play Magicka?
Only a little bit. Yeah, it's like co-op.
It's a co-op cute like game. I always like. I wish that we had some sort of like beam ability. Like where, you know, if you and me were playing together, I could fire my beam into your beam and it makes like a bigger beam for more damage. I always wanted stuff like that, and I know it doesn't like translate that much, but like they like link skills. Can't we have like offensive link abilities? I'm such a fan of that.
Don't know that they'll call them link skills after link skills not really getting all that much love in PoE 2. Yeah, I mean, I certainly like the ability of like player cross player combos. Your Ghostbusters beam, yeah, gotta happen sometime for sure. But we have a lot of combos now. Like, my mind was blown a little bit when I was playing the mercenary and I threw a gas grenade on a boss that was spamming fireground everywhere, and my gas grenades instantly exploded. I'm like, oh wow, I can kill this guy faster.
Oh, that is like, how so cool.
And then I was thinking about that. I was like, oh wait, if my ally does that, if my ally's like a sorceress throwing burning ground stuff everywhere, that's also going to detonate my gas grenades.
Oh, that's so cool. I love
so
that.
Sick.
Oh, I love that. Are you
very interesting party play potential?
Are you gonna start on hardcore and continue on softcore when you die, or what's your plan there?
No, I'm gonna go softcore for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask you actually where you'd arrived on that, because I know you were kind of like still trying to decide.
So, I'm starting hardcore, and I'm going to continue on softcore when I die, and I'm assuming I will die early.
Yeah, sure.
If on my first character, I literally just like manage. Let's say that I don't know if I get lucky, play really well, or over level. But let's say that I get to like 70, 80 plus on my first character, I would remake a hardcore. Would I? I don't know. It's such a hard choice. I would just vibe check it. But I'm planning on softcore because of a little bit of server issues and stuff like that. But I will at least do the campaign on softcore.
Yeah.
And
I
and
think
in
that's the go for everyone, really, whether you're normally a
yeah.
hardcore player or not.
Yeah, and in general, I feel like the
Makes sense.
game is a lot more appealing to me on softcore now. It actually has, even
Yeah,
PoE 1 has been starting to get more appealing to me because of void maps.
100%.
But
Yeah,
now it's gonna be a lot harder on softcore. So, like for example, I would never consider playing like Final Fantasy 14 on hardcore, right? So, or Dark Souls.
right, yeah.
So every game doesn't need to be hardcore. It just needs to be challenging. PoE
No,
1
no.
was at the point where I'm never ever going to lose the boss fight on softcore. So then I was
Mhm.
like, then it's not that fun.
Yeah, I mean, even that point, hardcore's not going to be that fun if you're starting to feel like that, because
Yeah,
then your hardcore deaths only come from like BS stuff. It feels like a lot of the time, or
yeah,
occasionally very satisfying weird things. But I think
yeah.
your point about Dark Souls is really good. It's like because it's a good example of a game that's I know people do like hitless runs and hardcore runs and stuff on Dark Souls, but fundamentally it's a game designed for the learning process to be for you to die.
Yep,
Like dying is a part of the process, and
100%.
I think PoE2 is more of that. But also like Path of Exile 1 as well. Like I used to do exclusively hardcore and then I did 50-50. And
Yep.
then just over the years I naturally stopped doing the hardcore because the softcore got much more satisfying. But it was the same early years of PoE. A lot more people played hardcore because it was more fun that way. But softcore has gotten more fun because there's more risk reward stuff for you to take on. There's more
Yep.
things for you to lose when you die that are like exciting and not just XP.
I think softcore is better for content
Yeah.
creation as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
So there is that. One rip clip versus being able to do things. Is quite the trade-off.
There was one thing I really wanted to talk to you about.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, how do you feel about the no ascendancy respec thing?
Oh, phew, I thought you were going to talk about my car insurance or something. I've really been meaning to talk to you about something. I think it's a mistake. But I also think like it's probably a thing that will just change in the beta, like
Yeah.
during the early access. Like they'll be like, okay, yeah, there wasn't really much benefit to this. People are just generally unhappy with this. Like it's one of those. Normally, when they do stuff like this, I'm like, oh, we'll wait and see. Like they're cooking. Maybe they have like an interesting reason, or there might be like something that occurs after we actually give this an honest try. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. You know what? In hindsight, this makes me play this way, or this enhances my experience in that way. But for this one, I'm like, I don't really see the upside.
Same.
Like, you can only say kind of the hand wavy, like, it strengthens class identity or something like that.
Yeah.
Decision making question mark. But I can't really like. I try to think these things through
Yeah.
and play devil's advocate with them, but I can't really with that one.
Pretty much same boat as me, because like we already have a very hard choice with like the class itself. Um,
Mm.
and especially in the early access with the big changes, like let's say something that you were playing, you really enjoyed like one certain play style, and it gets completely demolished, and you effectively like maybe there was another ascendancy you could try, but now you effectively have to like just make an entire new class instead. Like that's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who don't know, the way it works currently is in Path of Exile 1, if you want to reascend, like choose your other ascendancy, you can just go through the labyrinth, spend some respec points, and take a different ascendancy. But that will not be the case here once you've taken an ascendancy, which you do pretty early, right? Halfway through Act 2. Once you've taken it, you're locked into that one. And it's also that fact that you do take your ascendancy quite early, well before a lot of the time most players are going to have any idea what that means.
Yeah. And I think a
Or what
permanent
even their
choice
build is
early
going to
is
be
very
long
bad.
term. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. If it was something you took only at endgame, maybe that'd be
Yeah.
a little different. But even then,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it'd be
seems like a
very
pretty good
different
change.
if Ascendancy was a level 70 or 80 thing. Um, Also, how do you feel about no regret orbs? Like that is only through gold spec respec? Because that's not a tradable resource.
Um, I haven't thought about it until this point, so it's a good question. My initial reaction to you asking about it is like, it seems like it makes sense to just kind of like cut that now after trying gold
Hmm.
respecs.
Yeah.
But you do bring up an interesting second point there, which is like to follow the train of thought further. Um, it's tied to gold, which is tied to playtime exclusively, which you can't trade for. So it does mean if you are respecing a lot, then you have to play to do that. And the problem that I do potentially foresee happening, actually thinking it through now, just live, is that players might run into a position where they're trying to fix a build that's just not working at all, and they get this like weird half state where they're half respec,
Yeah.
and now they need to go earn more gold to continue respecing. It's like if they don't have another character, you're kind of stuck. Like you have to do much lower level content to get that, which is you can do that. Like you're never going to be fully stuck. You can always go back to level 40 zones or whatever at endgame and then go get some more gold. Unless they scale down currency for like low like character level difference like they do in PoE 1, right? In which case you get no gold. So we'll see how that plays out. I do foresee an issue there. Like that's definitely like a pretty not going to happen very often, but maybe a shade of that happens pretty often for new players, especially where they kind of like burn too much gold and they're not able to kind of fix their problems.
I think that's going to be a problem too. Like that is the pain point I see. Like you're maybe like fully investing into one build and you're buying stuff, right? Because you can buy items from the vendor still. So you're like, well, I'm going to buy some items. Nah, the build's still shit. But now I got to respec. Okay, we make a new character.
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, you do want to make a new character. And there is, like, I guess something to be said for, at a certain point, rolling a new character being a good thing.
Yeah.
But probably if the player gets into that position, they're not going to want to roll a new character, or they're not going to, like, feel good about that.
Yeah.
Especially if they roll the same character.
Yeah, because I feel like starting over is almost like learned behavior. I think it's the PoE version of beer.
Yeah.
Like where it's something like when I first started playing these games, I didn't really like it. I didn't really like the idea of leagues and stuff. That's something that like came to me later where I'm like, oh, I love starting over.
Yeah, it is a foreign concept to most of the rest of the gaming community. I saw this when I went and played, like, of all things, Albion Online, which introduced that, where they couldn't even, like, I was trying to talk to the community about this. It's like, this game really needs seasons. Like, this would be the thing to me that would make this work, coming from PoE. And the just visceral, full-bodied reaction against that idea was like, well, I was like, wow, I'm so surprised. But yeah, it's just... It's like core to us who have been playing PoE for a long time, but it is so foreign to nearly everyone else.
Yeah, like most games that I actively play has seasons. Like I play TFT, Tarkov, PoE, Last Epoch. Like everything I play almost has like seasons, and I love it. Even WoW now has seasons. So
I mean, I'm guessing you also kind of grew up a bit playing action RPGs or at least re-rolling characters in RPGs all the time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like I started with Diablo 1
That's
and
where that comes from.
incidentally started playing Diablo 1 hardcore, and it didn't have a hardcore mode. But I would play online on my ISDN connection, and it was so unstable. And the way death worked in that game, for those that aren't familiar with it, is when you die in Diablo 1, all your stuff drops on the ground. But if I DC or my PC crashes during that, I lose all my gear. So I basically start over anyway. So I had like 5 characters die that way.
I mean, even in chat right now, there's like people, like new people being like, oh, I'm not a fan of seasons. You have to restart every time. It's like, that's the fundamental difference in our mindsets, right? It's like we look at that and we say like, we get to restart because that's like the fun part. The most fun I have in nearly any game is the beginning of it. Like that initial kind of discovery period of like learning new mechanics, that initial like figuring out your build and getting it to end game and then getting it going and where it's really cranking and then enjoying it for a little while and then stopping and starting a new build. And then when I get tired of that, a new season comes out.
Yeah,
and I start again fresh and my stash is empty. I'm like, I get
exactly
build
that
again.
And it's like
building up.
Every season, the first Exalted or Divine or whatever it is, right? The first big thing they drop is so much more exciting than the 10th time that league they drop that.
Yep. Yeah. And like the economy reset, like trade feels so more vibrant at the beginning and everyone's excited together at the same time. If you don't have resets, you don't get that.
Yeah.
Like so many games wouldn't work with them really. Like it can be a band-aid for poor game design. Although like I feel don't at me, but I feel like Rust is a good example of that. It's a game that just doesn't work without resets. Like the game is designed kind of poorly to last a long time. It doesn't really work. You know, you get to a point where someone's dominating the server and making everyone else have no fun. So the only way for the game to be fun again is to reset.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
That's not really the case with Path of Exile, but to a certain extent, trade has a similar thing where having a big reset to the trade experience just makes everything vibrant again.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I don't know if you agree, but for me, the really good feeling for me about gaming is when I have my next upgrade in sight and I'm like, oh, now I'm about to get this upgrade, and then I'm working on this is what I'm working on, or maybe I'm working on
Yeah,
several things. But whenever I'm getting to the point of like, okay, now I need to grind for 2 weeks for the next upgrade,
yes,
then I'm like,
100%.
ah, but then I'm like, okay, I need to
Yeah,
grind 2 weeks for another upgrade, but then there's a new season in like a month and 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm just gonna go play variety.
I lose interest very quickly if I don't have like a pretty immediate goal to work for.
Yeah,
Um, goals are everything. Like I could still be getting upgrades, but if there's not like an interesting goal to shoot for, then that yeah, and that does eventually peter off, right?
yeah.
I mean, it's gotten better and better. Where like we've had more and more goals to work towards in Path of Exile 1, and more ways to get there. Especially Settlers, I think, was like the game at its best ever. We had
Really, really good for
so
that.
many goals to work for, and so many ways to get there, and everyone had so much currency, and it was
For,
a great
for,
time.
for me, Graveyard League was the worst for that because it was very much like, okay, cool, I got my in-game item now. And it was so fast, and it was just like literally click some buttons, you get a 6 tier 1 weapon and then synthesize it. I'm like, bro, that was
That
crazy.
part didn't even bother me. It was just the process of doing it was so awful. But that's a
Yeah,
whole other separate
yeah.
issue.
Like, I didn't even really want to learn it, and I was kind of avoiding it. And then Steele was like, sis, let me sit down with you and we'll do one craft together. Took like 1 hour, 10 minutes of him telling me what to do to set up one craft. And I'm just miserable sitting there like, it's taking us 1 hour and 10 minutes to set this shit up. Are you kidding me?
The For the new exiles joining us, there was a league before the current one in Path of Exile where the crafting mechanic was extremely powerful, but the way that you had to do it was to collect 60 something different specific corpses through trade, which meant 60 individual trades. It was very painful to craft, like to put in graves to then merge together with some sort of crafting ritual. It was the finest example of Path of Exile at its most obtuse, like most degenerate kind of. We've taken this too far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was too far. It was definitely too much for me there. Um yeah, no, it was rough. I think that
yeah.
I honestly I think I like Graveyard less than Calandra. Maybe. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was not so good, but we can forget all about that, Ziz. We have
I
our
know,
Path of
we're
Exile
going into
2 action
PoE
coming up.
2. I can't believe it. I'm so excited to see like what the scope of the leagues will be because I feel like Settlers was so good. Settlers, and there's a few leagues like this where I'm like, I want them to at least once, and I think they've talked about why they don't do this, but I want them to at least once go like, the next league is a continuation of this league.
Yeah, yeah. I think that can be very successful. Like Magic has done quite well with
Yeah,
that, like returning to a fan favorite. But I think having a delay between it does make a lot of sense. That's when people like
yeah,
it becomes nostalgic.
it
As soon
does.
as it becomes nostalgic, then it's a good idea to return.
So I remember asking Chris about this, and he told me, and he used Harbinger as an example, right, of a league really people wanted a continuation of.
Yeah.
And he was like, the problem with Harbinger is even if you're making a new league, the people that already hated Harbinger are not coming back for that league. Whereas if it's a new league, everyone's checking it out pretty much.
Even if
So
it's like completely different or something.
yeah, so I get that. It is a marketing issue, but
Hmm. Yeah, I
I
guess
I
there's a
guess
trade-off
they
there.
I guess they sort of did something like that with the Masters, with Betrayal, with Katarina and stuff, but they
Yeah,
weren't.
and I think that's a good way of doing it. It's like you get to leverage the nostalgia, but
Yeah,
it's in no way the same thing. And if anyone who hated it, we're now killing them. So,
yeah,
hooray!
yeah.
So I'm gonna keep giving more context for new exiles joining us because there's so many of them now. It's wonderful. A million players for launch. Anyway, the context here is that a long time ago in Path of Exile, we had a bunch of NPCs that would give us missions to do, and the missions were mostly very annoying. Like there was an assassin guy. Get this right. There was an assassin, and the mission we had to do for him was to not kill someone. It is like open the box, but don't kill the person. This is a game about killing things.
It's really
So
bad.
very frustrating.
Yeah, Haku
And you would accidentally kill them
missions.
all the time because right, you're blowing up the screen and then it accidentally dies.
It's so
So
bad.
a long time later, after years and years of this abuse, they finally said, "Hey, guess what? They're all betraying you." Oh, how cool is that, right? Like they're now the enemies. They've all been gathered up by one of the characters and made into this immortal syndicate of enemies for us to fight and go hunt down. And we've got all these new friends that are coming to join us, and they're not giving us annoying missions for the most part.
Yeah.
It
No,
was
it's
great,
that
great,
is
great
good.
time.
Honestly,
Spoilers.
Ziggy's ability to make things digestible for new players is something I could bring up because we do have an announcement today.
Oh,
We should do
would
that.
you? Would you?
Do you
Yeah.
want me
Would you
to do
like
the
to
honors?
announce? Then I
Okay.
can give the context.
So Ziggy D
Good segue.
here is going to be joining the Maxroll team.
Yay! Now, if you have no idea what that is, Maxroll is what I call like a content aggregator site, right? Like it brings different creators together and does like written content and guides and build guides and things like that, and puts them all in one place, as well as developing tools, which was a big factor for me in choosing Maxroll. The biggest factor for me, though, was the fact that Maxroll has a lot of press access and they haven't been posting build guides or tier lists or any of that stuff. They haven't been leaking things. They haven't been abusing. They have very strict rules from the behind the scenes. I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about that stuff, but from
That's
behind
good.
the scenes, they have like very strict rules on like not using that access to do anything but what it's intended for, which is for reviews. So the people who have press review access are only doing press reviews.
Yep.
The way it should be, right?
The way it should be.
I think long term, I want Path of Exile to be long term successful. I want to do content for Path of Exile 2 long term. I could get a couple 100,000 views now if I did like shitty content like that, in my opinion.
Where's the Ziggy D tier
Or I could
list?
build for years, right? Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think particularly interesting. You did say like what type of content you want to do on Maxroll. So you didn't want to necessarily focus on build guides. So I want you to talk a little bit about that because I think that's something you're really good at.
Yeah, so I used to do a bunch of build guides, and then I kind of just fell off over the years. Like I lost interest in making that kind of content, and I think other people were like doing it better. I may do some of that stuff for Path of Exile 2 because I think I might feel a bit more re-inspired to do it, especially with a very firm perspective towards it being like a good way for beginners. Like I am interested in the idea of designing a very beginner friendly build, for example.
Yeah.
But even if it's not something that's like super good at endgame. But that's not my main interest. My main interest definitely over the years has become figuring out the new mechanic and explaining it in a way that people can go. And I love that. I always love getting this comment. It's my favorite comment every league start. Oh, finally, I can play the league now. I understand it. Where's the Ziggy video to help me understand like how this convoluted grinding gear games thing is supposed to work? That's my favorite. And so yeah, systems, mechanics, guides to core game systems, fundamental mechanics, and new league mechanics, and that sort of things. Like that stuff that helps you. For me, I get a lot of dopamine when players are like, "Oh, I'm enjoying the game way more now."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, you see it, you get it now." Yes,
That's wholesome.
because
I love it.
it probably stems from some sort of like maybe when I was a little kid, I was probably like gushing about something I really liked that I was super into to like one of my friends and they didn't get it and they looked at me weird. So ever since then, I've had like a chip on my shoulder about this. I want other people to get it. I want other people to be excited about the thing I'm excited about. So I want to make them be excited about it. So I want to make that content that helps them get there. So yeah, I've been doing that through my stream and through my YouTube for a long time. There's always the like, how do you serve the people who don't want to watch a video or need some sort of written aid for that? Or yeah, there's a lot of gaps in what you can do with YouTube. I've tried to help that by like posting notes on my Discord and stuff. It's very suboptimal. So I had been interested in aggregators for a while, but never had time to look at it. Looked at them this league and settled on Maxroll.
Nice. Well, we're
I actually
happy to
reached
have
out
you.
to them, not the other way around, which was nice.
Yeah. No, we're happy to have you.
That's exciting. Thanks.
That's very good. So yeah, and like Ziggy said, we are like not going to be posting any, like we don't have like full guides ready to go. We don't have league starters ready to go.
You can look
so
at the site now. There's not much on there yet, just some resources from what's been already kind of explained by GGG and whatnot.
Yeah. So our creators will be working on that like 3 to 6 hours into launch, and as soon as they can have stuff up, we will. But we're exploring things with the community, not like ahead of time.
Yeah, I know. Internally, we're even discussing the idea like, oh, maybe no one should post any build guides until like a while into the beta. Like even if you're doing more speculative stuff, like, is that high enough quality to warrant that? Like, so
Yeah,
we'll see
exactly.
where we land with that.
Like I can't remember where I posted it already, but like my build guide like isn't any, it's there's 10 seconds of me saying like I'm gonna do totems and smash stuff. That's like what I'm doing at League Start, you know?
Yes, I'm much the same way as like a grenade mercenary thing, I guess. Yes, definitely. I have not been looking at all the support gems and skill gems and passive tree and stuff like that to like try and figure out my exact build this time around.
Yeah.
You know, going in and enjoying that blind is the great joy of something so new like this. Like, it's different for a league start for PoE 1, right? Like, you want to have a decent plan at this point. But for the brand new game, for your first experiences, yeah.
I'm
Not
just
the
so
way I want to go.
happy. Like I've been borderline harassing GTD for the last 6 months, maybe more, being like, please don't do streamer access. Like every streamer I've
Yeah.
talked to for the most part, like actually every streamer I talked to, none won access ahead of time. And
Yeah.
it's
So
so
they were
great.
originally planning on having like a week before now, like where people would be able to like go in and make content. But they decided against that like, I don't know, a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, because like I was like, okay, I'll do that, but I didn't feel good about it. It's like, it's not like I'm gonna not do it, right? It's my
Oh,
career.
that's what I was
But
telling them, and obviously, like there would be huge benefits
yeah,
to
I'd
us
have to,
financially
but
doing it. Like, and I was like, I'll have to say
yeah.
yes if you do it, but I really don't want it. I don't want to be
Yeah,
offered. It's
just don't.
bad.
It was a relief when they said not they weren't doing it. It was a
Yeah,
relief.
and
That's
and
how I
even the
felt.
Diablo
Like, oh
4 creators like Woody and stuff that they had loads of hours in D4. They were like I don't want this. Like we don't want the ability to have this, but like we have
yeah.
to say yes, which is yeah, true.
Yeah,
Alright,
yeah. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Just like what content do you make in the lead up to something like this that actually gets people more excited, helps the game, rather than kind of like detracting from it.
yeah.
Because you can get a lot of views, you know, if you don't care about that, but you can also get a lot of views doing stuff that will actually be a positive force. So I'm self-reflecting on that, and even like some of the content I made recently, I'm still like, oh, I don't know if I liked that specific part of the video. I feel like I wish I hadn't have done it that way.
Right.
You know, maybe where I phrased something as a recommendation a bit too much. I was like, it would have been better if I just kind of like said my experience was this.
Right.
But even then, that can be taken as a reaction. Anyway, I'm overthinking it for sure, but for the
That's a
most
good
part, people
thing
seem
though.
to have really enjoyed the content I've done. So,
That's a
um,
good thing.
but
Are
yeah,
you going to WAC?
yeah, probably for the most part. Like, I had the experience where like every time I was playing and swap back to click to move, like I felt weird, but
Yeah.
which is odd. But I don't want that to like freak people out because apparently a lot of people are still using click to move in the studio and everything. Jonathan was saying that. I asked him specifically about it. And he's like, oh, actually, a lot of our devs have moved back to click to move, which I was like, surprised because before they were saying like, oh, everyone's doing WST. So it probably will feel good on a class by class basis, but there will also be like a whatever you end up getting comfortable with, you'll probably stick with because it's, you know, weird to adjust back and forth. But I did melee and I did ranged on it, and it felt
Yeah.
really good on both.
Yeah, I had a similar experience where I was going and expecting me to not like WAC, and then I did click to move and I was like, nah. Then I did WC and I was like, oh, oh. The only thing I'm worried about is I get a lot more like wrist pain in my left arm. So I'm a little bit concerned about
With
that.
WSD.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Really?
Well,
That's
I don't know
unfortunate.
if WSD will
Often
do
it's
that,
better,
but
yeah.
like in general, like my mouse arm
Yeah.
really never hurts.
Oh, yeah, wow. Yeah, it's often the opposite for people. So, maybe you do better on a controller long term, or
Yeah.
maybe the click to move might be better for you then if it's a health thing. But yeah, whichever route you go, I'll just say this: like, even if like you, oh, I need to play your Jonesing for it, and you're in, and you're
Yeah.
like, you want to play, just stop and like tinker with your key
Yeah.
bindings, like right at the beginning, and then do it again like a few seconds later. I didn't do that in my initial playtest, and in fact, we couldn't do that in some of the initial playtests. We couldn't change the key bindings. Awful, hated it.
Yeah.
Had a lot less fun. Recent one, I really, really made sure to customize my key bindings. And if you look at my mercenary videos, you'll see that they have like very specific key bindings. And some people were like, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea." That like setting up like that, and it was so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like binding my, especially now with the two flasks. Actually, that was a big improvement because I just did like Q and E with like my two flasks next to WASD.
Yeah.
And then you got like your mouse side buttons, and then I'm still kind of figuring out where I want it, especially if I end up needing secondary keybinds.
Yeah.
What I'll do with those, but probably worth discussing and tinkering with and messing with down the line.
Yeah.
key bindings and how people are going with that.
I also had just want to bring up real quick because obviously there's a lot of people watching the podcast, including the CEO of Maxroll. So, and he saw some questions in chat, and people are asking, does Maxroll have access? And GDD did approach Maxroll and have offered access for us to review the game and stuff like that. None of like the streamers, content creators, me, Ziggy, I don't know about Ziggy, but we're like, I don't have access, stuff like
No,
that. But we do
I
have
don't.
one guy that is going to be posting like a game review, like traditional media, but where like there's
Yeah.
not going to be any guides or anything like that. We are going to be exploring the game alongside the community.
And then they don't do like content creation outside of that sort of stuff, really? Do they? Apart from like writing Maxroll like things?
No, he's like
Yeah.
a journalist. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's what I said. That was one of the deciding factors, and this was before all the recent drama as well. Like, I was looking at the aggregate sites, and I was just like, I just had a better taste in my mouth from that approach. It was one of the first things that kind of came up. I was just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
I
want it.
mean, that's part of why I joined Maxroll too, because they've always had like a really good ethical approach to things. Like they shut down the Diablo Immortal site entirely because they were like, no, this game is dog shit and pay to win. And there was like loads of
Didn't know that.
articles
That's
about
fun.
it. Yeah, there was loads of articles about it because they had put like loads of work into making a full Diablo
Yeah,
Immortal
that's a hard
site.
decision to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they'd spend like I don't know, I would imagine anywhere between like 100K and millions, right? Because it costs a lot to set up
Yeah.
like a branch like that. And then the CEO was like, "No, this game is fucking shit," and he just deleted it all. He was like, "Yeah, fuck you, Blizzard. We're not doing this."
Am I allowed to talk about how the like financial incentives work for us creators
Well, it's just like similar to YouTube with
in
like,
in a general sense? Yeah. Well, okay. So I mean that's fine then. So something I've always liked about YouTube is that the ad revenue share system means that I directly earn based on the quality of my content. Like, I know that's been lost a bit over the years with like clickbait and
the
engagement
quantity of your
farming, stuff
content,
like that.
Ziggy.
Yes. But as long as you have standards, the quality of your content directly correlates to your earnings. So I always liked that aspect.
Yeah.
It's like I always felt like it was if people are getting something out of this, then I can earn a living, and that will scale up the better I do. So a lot of the other options I had were like flat payments or bonuses funded by venture capital, and that's fine. Like that's how you get started. But it didn't personally interest me because I wanted to keep that same vibe. Like I didn't want to just be kind of like posting an article because I had to because I'm getting paid X dollars per month to do so.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like posting articles that I'm super interested in that I know will earn because they're going to be giving value to people.
Yep.
So that is just like fundamentally like a different thing. Like that to me is a big deciding factor. And I think that results in better content as long as you have standards. So that can be maintained by like kicking out the people who don't have standards, which
Yep.
Maxroll seems to be doing. Which I appreciate.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you. Yeah, I'm very excited about that, and it should be fun to like make content and stuff for the upcoming stuff.
Yeah, I'm super excited for making content with PoE too. It's like like there was a period there where I did make too many YouTube videos for PoE1 because I wasn't as excited to make the content.
Yeah.
But it actually has like recent release have kind of I've come back in a big way because I've just been really enjoying what they've been doing and making the content for it. But Path of Exile 2 is like a whole other ball game there. I'm so excited to make content on literally anything.
I think
I'm gonna make a video on
Noogie
hotkeys now.
exactly. I think Noogie's very similar to you there, where he was like a little bit burned out on PoE1 and he's really ready for something new. So I think you're not the only one there. Let's see. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna run real quick and like clear my nose because I'm still a bit sick.
Sure,
So
I'll entertain people. It's fine.
awesome.
Yeah, it's it feels like a race to release content almost. Yeah, that is always like a really tough thing as a content creator to fight against that. Like there is that, and it's so hard to not fall victim to that if I don't get the first out of everything and post all of the content and do all of it before anyone else, then I'm screwed. And I mean, if you do that, that is a pathway to success. If you're the person who does that, then you will be probably successful, at least in the short term. But it feels so much better if you can resist that and just focus on a few things and do them really well. So I'm still figuring out how I'm gonna approach making content in when early access releases. Like, do I just stream all day and play a ton and not really make content? Maybe just post some highlights that take only a short amount of time to make. Do I post kind of like a higher volume of like kind of lower effort kind of vlog style content where it's like some highlights and just me talking to the camera for a bit. Like that's fine. It's a really efficient content style. And I look at that and I'm like, oh man, that looks like a really nice, like fun way to make content. Or do I go like the higher effort and take a lot more less time streaming and then make really like high quality, well edited, specific guides? It's a tough choice. It might be a bit of a mixture, like where initially it's some vlog based stuff and then later on down the line it's well edited guides, but still something I'm filling out, that kind of approach to content for a new game. But yeah, you got to resist that allure of just like posting everything fastest.
Yeah. Do you ever make the videos while you're live?
I have done a little bit of that, yeah. Like if it is just kind of like a quick one take, like oh this needs to be explained, sort of thing, but not too
You edit
much.
your own videos, right?
I do, yeah.
That's mental to me. I could not live without Scrya. That's mental.
Yeah, it's probably. I definitely should be considering offloading more of that, and I know Amy is interested in doing more of that stuff in the future.
Yeah.
It'll probably be initially at least like supplementary content, like additional stuff to what I do now, rather than taking over what I do. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if it's I'm a control freak or I have want things to be done in a very specific way, or it's just like the idea of like finding someone to do that is hard.
Yeah.
I think when you're kind of like just kind of earning a comfortable living as well, which is the state I'm at. Like I earn a comfortable living if I work hard. It's hard to be like, oh, can I actually give someone the value? Because it takes a long time to edit a video. I was like, can I give them the value?
It does. It does.
Well, that might change in a year or something. We'll see.
Yeah, I love my workflow with Scrya, and sometimes he'll have a really good idea for a video, and since this is a game that I mean, I have 26,000 hours in the game now, so it's like he just like he'll structure the video and make bullet points, and he'll be like, talk about this part of the game, talk about this part of the game. Sometimes he'll try to sneak in like, I really like this part, and I'm like, well, I don't, but it's great, so it's really good.
Yeah, and if it does result in new content that is interesting like that, then that's like the ideal outcome. So it's something I'll probably explore more in the future. But yeah, if you don't have like a background in this or you haven't like tried your hand at editing before or seen it, the mercenary video I made, which is 28 minutes long, probably took me about 20 hours of editing straight up, and then like that's in addition to the time recording and doing the other fluff around it, like script writing and things like that. So probably like 30 hours total.
Yeah,
to make that video, to make a 30-minute video, right?
Yeah,
that's not unusual either.
Yeah, I mean, my like at least you're good at editing. Like my editing was so bad. Like I is really bad.
I don't know, my editing's kind of scuffed, but it's getting better.
No, it's miles better. I look like a toddler by comparison. Another thing I really wanted to talk about was how do you feel about the pausing?
I'm so excited that pausing is a thing. Like, oh my god, when I play a game nowadays that isn't Path of Exile 1, which I've come to accept doesn't have pausing, and you can't pause, I'm like I'm playing some like survival game or something like that, and you like open up your menu and it's like not pause. I'm like, ugh. Unless I'm literally playing multiplayer with other people.
Yeah.
Like pausing, I feel like is a fundamental human right.
No, that's
my cat's
fair.
on fire. I need to be able to smother them with a blanket, right? Like,
yeah. I'm definitely worried about pausing for hardcore.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of intricacies of strange things to figure out how things work, which they've been laboring over as well. But I was definitely mind blown by the fact that we can actually pause in multiplayer as well. Like that to me is really sick. That people can like agree to pause and it can pause.
Yeah.
And if you're like, and it's organically done too, I think. Don't quote me on specifics, but I feel like if you're playing couch co-op and like you both open your menu, the game pauses. Like if you both open your passive screen or whatever, the game pauses. Because you're in that state, neither one is looking at the game screen, so it auto pauses. I think that was what happens.
That sounds right.
But stuff like that is like that's just good. It's just
good. No, I so definitely like the pausing in general. I guess my concern, so obviously like this was a roller coaster for me because when I asked Jonathan about it, it went like when he first started talking about it, it sounded like hardcore boss fights was commit or die. Yes. And then I was like, oh no. But then
that's what I thought.
But then he was like, you can pause and leave instantly. And then I was like, wait, but that's too easy.
I'm very confused by this decision. Yeah. Because like I get the idea of them not doing the you can portal out and come back to boss fights change. That made a lot of sense based on what they tested, how it played, and then how it plays now, which works quite well. So, but to make it so that you can't portal out, but you can just press escape and leave instantly, that is a very strange choice to me. Like,
I think it's because they're like, if you portal out, you should be able to portal back. Whereas I would love the ability to like do a 1 or 2 second channel, portal out, but I'd lose the fight.
It's so easy to like justify if you need to that it not working that way though. Like if you portal out of a boss fight, the boss goes over and crushes your portal, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so like it's an escape.
Oh, that looked cool too, like the portal shattering.
Yeah, like they blow up your portal, like they. Like you can't come back because what would a smart boss be doing? They'd be sitting there with their sword poking through the portal, so when you step through, you're like skewered on it. Like it's very easy to justify the idea that you can't come back, and then if you do go back to the boss fight, it's a full reset. So you can keep that idea of like, okay, if you die, so let's just talk softcore for a second to simplify things. If you die in a boss fight, it's a full reset, right? They're designing the boss fights with that in mind,
yeah,
which makes everything play a lot better in general. That wouldn't work if they had like a bunch of netcode issues and stuff. Thankfully, with the pausing stuff, a lot of that's solved. So that's awesome. Love that. So then if you were to portal, it would be the same thing as dying. The boss fight should just reset. That's fine. Okay. You can make the portal instant and then make it escapes as just like an alternate way of doing portals. Okay, that makes sense. Make the portal non-instant, which I think is kind of fun. And that's like a fun thing for hardcore if it takes like a second to cast the portal. And then you get those moments of like people trying to do that desperate portal.
Yeah.
But then to bypass that with, I don't know, so confusing to me.
Because like as a hardcore player, I don't mind the state of PoE 1 right now with loadout macro, and I think like it actively makes the game fun. But this is so much stronger than loadout macro, and I think it'll make really weird gameplay. Because it's so much stronger than loadout macro because like right now, like you can pause and be like, do I need to leave here? Oh no, actually I can do this instead and not leave. Or you can just click a button and you're safe. It's so and there's never again a risk of like there's quite a few players that Karatha aren't using logout macro because they end up dying more to the logout macro than not, right? Because there's such a big chance with Karatha's connection that if he DCs, he gets stuck for 6 seconds. There's no risk of that anymore. So it's like 5-6 times stronger than logout macro, and it's way too safe. I really hope that like there's a few solutions they could do for hardcore. You could either have like you can only pause once per boss fight. That like alleviates a lot, or some sort of cooldown on it, or that it takes too like I think especially for hardcore the pausing is way too strong.
I feel like as long as you can't do anything while the game's paused in hardcore, then it's fine. I think people should be able to pause as much as they want. Yeah, because like that to me is just like better accessibility. It's more fun. Like, what if your other cat catches on fire? You need to be able to pause twice in that boss fight, right?
Okay, sure.
Like, what if they're proliferating to each other?
What about the resurrected checkpoint taking 2 seconds then? Like that being instant is crazy.
Portal, right? Like
I think it should be a portal.
yeah. I mean, it's just so weird to me. Like they seemingly made one gameplay decision and then like circumvented it with like a thing that isn't a gameplay thing. To me, like what you do on the menu screen isn't part of the gameplay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they've kind of created a brokenness inherent to the game. Like something that's not meant to work that way. So
yeah. Also, somebody
that's maybe going to be confusing for players too.
Somebody asked, and I want to elaborate a little bit on it. I don't get your reasoning then for somebody being able to leave a fight to begin with. I think that's a really good question because that might not be super obvious. The reason I like that fights aren't like you walk into a fight and you commit and either you die or the boss dies. The reason I don't like that is because I've played games like that, and what it ends up making is that you over prepare so much to the point where there's a 0% chance of you dying. And I love risk. My favorite, it's actually something me and Steel are very different in. Steel Mage plays hardcore to never die. So it would be interesting to see how he feels about this. I love close calls. I love taking risk. But when I have to commit, when I have to know that I can kill it, I'm going to over prepare so hard that there's a 0% chance that I die to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is like a certain element of fun to that, and it's a fun idea. The idea that you'd only have one shot and it's full commitment. You go in, you have to either die or they die. Like that sounds really cool. It sounds like something you'd put on the, on the cover of some big grade action movie VCR. But
Yeah,
it does in actual reality not necessarily play out that fun. Like I
yeah.
said,
Like Terraria, I was
mindset
playing like
doesn't quite
that,
work.
and I was just like every hardcore boss, I would just be so prepared, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Bang, 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 bang. All right, easy, no problem.
And yeah, and you kind of maybe just end up feeling a bit disappointed when you defeat them in the end because like the challenge is way out of whack.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas
Like it wasn't
like,
wasn't hard in the end.
yeah, exactly. Like in PoE 1, there have been fights that I've like had close calls and maybe logged out 3 or 4 times and be like, oh my god, I almost died there. And then I'm literally sitting there shaking when I killed it because I went in so much earlier than I should have, and I didn't spend like 2 extra days farming.
Yeah, yeah. I think having the not full commitment is the right play. I do think allowing to exit via the pause screen is a good idea. But it being at odds with the no portal thing is the
Yeah.
part that confuses me.
Yep, I agree with that. It will be really fascinating to me because there's a lot of people that are against logout macro, but they've always said they're against it because it's a third party thing. Now, this is stronger than logout macro. Will they change their tune now? Because people would say, like, oh, logout core, it's cheating. But it's like, no, well, now it's part of the game. You're still going to say it's cheating? Because I could definitely see people saying pause core.
Yeah, there you go. You've already coined it. Yeah, and it's a little bit at odds with one thing I was excited about too, which was the fact that they designed it so that you can't like portal out and then come back and portal out and
Yeah,
come back, or corpse rush the boss even worse. Made it that they were forced to design better boss fights that were
yeah,
tuned better, and to really really focus on play tuning, which they have been doing a really good job of.
yeah.
So then to have like a way to instant escape that does mean that like I do worry long term whether that means that players are doing this all the time, so we can make it so we need to make it so
Yeah.
that the boss can kill them before they can press the pause button. It's like yes,
Yeah.
now we're back.
All
Now we're
right.
back where we came from.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
the whole stream
fascinating to
back.
me. Like, softcore looks a lot more appealing to me in PoE 2 anyway. Like we talked about earlier. And like I would love for the game to be so hard that hardcore is completely unviable and then I just play softcore.
Hmm.
Like I don't
Fair
have like
enough.
a need to play hardcore. Like I play
Yeah,
Elden
yeah.
Ring
I
and
mean, if you
stuff
get the
on.
same experience, if you get the same dopamine hits,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
that's fine, right?
Yeah.
It probably saves you a little bit of agony when you die through no fault of your own, which occasionally happens, which
Yeah.
is too
And
much
it's
for a lot of
like
people.
it's really nice because so many soccer players are saying that we want the game to be harder. We want it to be like harder than Gauntlet. So it sounds like that's what the softcore players want too. Because I was getting criticized as trying to baby softcore players, but yeah, they seem to want it to be a lot harder
That's an
too.
interesting topic. Is that Path of Exile 2 is exploring a lot is like difficulty versus accessibility. I want Path of Exile
True.
2 to be very accessible, but also very difficult. And it's not too often that games really nail that. Um, it's a difficult concept, and it even seems like they're at odds with each other just because so many games rely on inaccessibility being a form of difficulty. Path of Exile 1 being one of the worst culprits of all time. A lot
Mhm.
of the difficulty of Path of Exile 1 is in the fact that you have to learn a lot of things in order to be able to make an even functional build. And
Yeah.
even that is outside of the grasp of people who've played for, thousands of hours a lot of the time. It's like even after playing for, I don't know, 20k hours or whatever, I still have to rely on looking at, other people's things and going and looking up my old guides and
Yep.
looking at a ton of resources in order to make sense of anything that I haven't engaged with recently.
No, I
Um,
love that. I do the same.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fun thing for a certain kind of person, like
Yeah.
myself, and many of the people who did end up loving Path of Exile 1. But it turns so many players away, and that's a part of I think this change towards the much higher accessibility of PoE 2, and I really hope it does nail that. It's going to be interesting to see just how well it does do that,
Yeah.
because like I can only judge it so far. Like I could say this looks much more accessible, but I don't have context for that. I
Yeah.
can't really assess that.
I definitely think that's what they're going for anyway. So we just gotta give feedback and see how it is.
Yeah, yeah. My biggest fear is that like all of this hype people outside of the Path of Exile community who are coming to PoE 2 and being really excited, and like the random TF2 YouTuber or whatever is trying Path of Exile 2 for the first time and getting really excited about it. Like,
Yeah.
just bounces really hard off of something early on in the early access,
Yeah.
and it's like a major backlash, and it kind of gets
I
branded as like Path of Exile 1 all over again.
I was really worried about that when I was at the LA event, the one in June or whatever. I can't remember when it was.
The earlier
And
events were very bad in
it
a
was
number of ways.
so hard, and I had a game journalist to my left and right. One guy was hard
Oh
stuck
yeah.
on the Devourer. Another guy was hard stuck on another boss, like a little bit further, and both of them just quit early. Like they didn't even finish the playtest. And there was somebody else sitting next to, I can't remember if it was Ben or Tai Tai or Nuki, but there was a game journalist that like whipped out games on his phone instead. And I'm like, oh, this is too hard. Like this is
Oh
definitely
no.
too hard because like all of us were like, I think I had like
It,
40 deaths in 4 hours. And I was like, brother, this is hard.
I will say that fear, although that's my biggest fear, is not keeping me awake anymore, because I am feeling very optimistic about that now
Oh,
after
that's you.
playing the more recent builds. Especially because now I actually think the bigger risk is that Path of Exile 1 players are going to have a more visceral negative reaction, because this is what they do without fail. Every Path of Exile 1, I'm no exception. They run into the monsters, they get the monsters to start following them, they run to the next pack, they
I
loot
did
them
that.
up, and then they get surrounded and stuck and die. And they do it a bunch of times before they realize what they're doing wrong.
Guilty.
New players, new players don't do that. People who have come from other games don't do that. They see the scary monsters and they like, ooh, they think about how they're going to engage with them. Like, they critically analyze it. They're smarter than us. Like, I see some of that gameplay and I'm like, they're doing it right. They're actually approaching this situation way smarter. And then I watch like other things like one veteran of 10,000 hours do it, and I'm like, oh, they look dumb. We look dumb sometimes.
It's because we're trying to be
So,
efficient, but it just doesn't work.
yeah, we're trying to be the gods that we are in Path of Exile 1, right? Which is built on decade of experience, and also just far more powerful early on. We haven't earned that right yet. We have to earn that. You can do that. We will be able to do that in PoE 2, but we have to earn it.
What's that game where you're a peasant? It's like Mount and Blade kind of type of game. There's a game where
I know the one you're talking about. Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Yes, we have to have that approach.
Game's so good for that.
Yeah,
because he is such a little dweeb peasant. He's such a little peasant.
Yeah,
he's like a little.
The only thing I hated about that game was like the lock on movement. I remember I like attacked one time and it moved me up a castle wall, and I'm like, bro.
It's a janky game in many ways, but it really nailed that vibe of you being like just a little piece of garbage that no one cares about. That is really unskilled. Like I've never felt so pathetic when I tried to fight some random bandit.
Yeah.
And I just was completely demolished because I am literally just a little peasant boy.
Yeah.
like this guy's been fighting for all of his life, right? For table scraps. Meanwhile, I just came from my cushy farm.
Yeah.
And
it's a good game.
It nails that. PoE 2 is a bit of that.
Yeah.
PoE 2 is a bit of that.
But especially, I'm a lot more relieved after seeing more of the in-game footage and stuff. Like it looked really enjoyable and fun to play. And I think the majority of even PoE 1 players feel like there is a need for a power reset, because it is rough to go back. So it's nice to not start. Like, I don't want to start at 1.3 quadrillion damage. Like that's too much.
Yeah, we were starting to get there a little bit, weren't we? It's like it's like your damage over time build is not good unless you've dot capped. It's like that's what when that started to be like the current standard, I was starting to get a little bit might be time for a little bit of a fresh start on that one.
Yeah, and like one thing I've never liked in PoE, actually this like almost started burning me out of PoE, when it got to the point where even on hardcore you can make such a glass cannon that you're literally one-tapping the boss, so the boss spawns and you just like click, it's gone. I was like, what's the point of a boss? Like, a boss fight should be hard. Yeah, I don't know. That was a rough one for me.
Yeah, you got to at least stop somewhere before you start running up against like integer limits of computer programming and whatnot.
Yeah,
I was like, well, your build's not good unless you start to like, the number crunching on your CPU starts to melt your heatsink. That's like, that's the only time it makes sense to play it.
I have a question about bosses, actually, for how you feel about it. How do you feel, especially in the end game, that bosses are one try only on softcore? That you literally lose the boss set when you die once. Like you don't get 6 portals.
While there are some concerns about that, I'm eager to explore. I think fundamentally it follows the same feeling that I have about the campaign, is that it forces them to make the boss fights good.
Mhm.
I like the accountability of that for the developers. Because if they're not good, then the players will have a very bad time with that decision.
Yeah.
So I have enough faith that they will be able to, or have already nailed the boss fights, especially because I know the people working on the boss fights and they are very cool. But yeah, it is risky. It's a risky move for them to decide to do it that way, because it does rely on them doing a really good job.
Yeah.
But I would rather them make the decision that relies on them doing a good job and ends up with a better result, than to like kind of immediately slap the band-aid on it, so to speak.
That's
Which,
fair.
like, the six portal, like, corpse rushing is a band-aid. It's a band-aid from like when netcode of Path of Exile was so bad that you had to allow players to do that, and when the difficulty was so untuned that you had to let players corpse rush the boss, because otherwise they would just never get through it.
Yeah. Also, somebody asked in chat, can you log out? No, like if you do the logout thing on softcore, like that's still like you lose the fight. Like that's not
Does
like
it crush your portals? Does it? Yeah, I wasn't sure about that part.
yeah,
Whether it does or
it,
not.
it does.
I
Like
assume it counts as failing. I think any failure
yeah,
crushes your portals, and then you can't go back in,
yeah.
which is a nice, clean, kind of simple way of doing it. So to further explore the idea and concerns I do have about it and things they will need to nail, go ahead.
1 sec. People are saying it just resets the boss. That's just in the campaign. In the end game, when you're popping
Yep.
a Sash Ruler or something, no, it's you lose it.
Well, that's a good point, because the thing I really like in the campaign is that the checkpoint is right outside the boss, and they even make like the boss dialogues and stuff shorter
Yeah,
on reattempts, so you can just keep chain reattempting if you want.
yeah,
That is a really, really good like decision, in line with the fact that it resets. If it reset and you had to run through the whole zone, hell no, I hate that about Dark Souls games. Like
yeah.
that is,
Same.
is very frustrating. And I also hate how like long it takes to earn the Maven fight. So for new exiles, there's a particular endgame fight, and then many of them, Path of Exile 1 is chronically guilty of this, where it takes like a really long time to gain access to a boss, these pinnacle bosses, and they have mechanics that you have to just learn by failing.
Yep.
So when you fail them, it takes you hours to get back to them. That is very frustrating to like try and engage with that learning process. I want to be able to do them back to back and learn it.
This is what
So
I wanted to
I hope
ask about.
they do that. Yeah, that's what I want them.
Because I saw a comment, and obviously, like I just want the game to be harder personally, so it's hard for me. So I saw a comment that said, "This is going to cause that new players are just going to sell their bosses to somebody else that can do them, and people will not end up doing their own bosses." And I could definitely see that happening. That would be my main concern.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the kind of the next step of this concept to explore, because while I do really like the idea of having the bosses be one shot and the accountability that makes them to make the boss fights really good, there is still that problem of I can't tolerate that risk. I can't tolerate the time taken to get back to it, and that learning process being really unfun. I am worried. I'm very worried that will be the case. So we can't really speak to that right now. Like, maybe it won't feel that bad. Maybe it will be fine. Maybe they've thought of that. So we'll need to explore that in the beta, I think.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a feedback area I want to focus on for sure. I was like, hopefully they can come up with it. I don't know what a good solution for that is. Like, I think maybe making it so that, like, let's say a pinnacle boss, right? Maybe it's not the uppermost echelon pinnacle boss, but maybe most pinnacle bosses, the first time you fight them, you get kind of an introductory fight grace where it's easy to reattempt them. Which is kind of like how the Ascendency system works, where that first Ascendency, for example, if you fail in your first trial, you can immediately try it again. You don't have to like go farm another key or something.
Yeah.
You can just keep trying it again and again and again until you get it. You can learn the mechanics. That's great. If they extended that sort of grace to like most pinnacle bosses, at least in endgame, then they can have the Uber versions of them later down the line that don't do that.
That's a really good idea. You could even have like
learning process.
You could even have like, if you really want to make it hard, you could have like no reward or limited reward if you want to just practice the boss and like learn it.
Yeah,
that'd be really good.
The first encounter with them is a quest item, right, rather than a tradable item.
Yep. All of this being said, though, I love even if it's things that I'm concerned about and I can see problems with, I love that they're doing so many things that are different, because this is early access. The game doesn't need to be perfect the minute it comes out, right? This version that we're about to play on the 6th doesn't need to be the version that we're playing at launch. So like I said, there's so many things I'm concerned about, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is going to be good, but I love that they're trying it, because it might be
Yes.
really cool. It might be like, no, I way prefer it this way.
Yeah, the worst thing Path of Exile 2 could be is boring. Like, that's definitely far worse than it being broken or poorly optimized or poorly tuned.
Yep.
Or buggy or anything else. If it's boring, that's hard to come back from.
100%.
So taking these risks and doing things very differently ensures that it won't be boring, even if it does need a lot of fixing and a lot of fine tuning.
Yeah, I agree.
As long as it's not boring.
That's all I'm hoping for.
It's not going to be boring.
It's not going to be boring.
It's not going to be boring.
It's also just going to be so fresh. It's going to be so fresh.
We've played and seen enough to know that's the case.
I was really worried when I played the 40-minute demos, and I feel like PoE almost shouldn't have done the 40-minute demos, or at least I shouldn't have played them. I feel like it's a game that just doesn't translate well into a 40-minute demo. It was probably partly as well because in the first one I played, it like assigned the skill tree for you. So I was just getting none of the PoE feelings that I wanted.
Yeah, it was not a good way to experience Path of Exile 2. Like, for so many reasons. Like, starting on a character you didn't make and go through the process of learning and figuring out and tuning to your playstyle is awful to begin with. And then, missing the fundamental aspects of the game is like you finding a cool item and putting it on and seeing how it changes your character, which just wasn't happening in this short playtest.
Yeah, well,
they just didn't work.
I remember playing at the LA event, and I was having so much fun, and I was playing a Ranger, and I'd managed to make... Do you remember the support skill for Ranger? It's kind of like Toxic Rain, but it slows everything.
It's been too long since I played that one.
So it's like this, like, what it does is it's kind of Toxic Rain. It puts a plant down, and it basically hits anything there.
Yeah, I remember.
And it slows. It doesn't do that much damage, but I managed to scale it so it did do loads of damage. And I remember Jonathan came over, and I basically got it down to like a PoE 1 playstyle where I was like running and Toxic Raining.
I remember this.
It was so fun. And Jonathan came over like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm basically Toxic Rain. And he's like, that's a support skill. And I'm like, not anymore. And he's like, that's the first time I've seen someone doing that. It's great. I'm loving it. I was just worried he's going to be like, nerf this.
I had like a somewhat similar experience where like I kind of built Flashbang for my main skill, which is also kind of a support skill. And that did raise Jonathan's eyebrow. He sent a note to Mark about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Flashbang gets a little bit nerfed for launch chat. Sorry.
Oh no. Siggy's
It was so good. I loved it. Flashbang's amazing. Oh my god. I did not expect to like, a stun grenade so much. Oh my god.
Yeah. There's definitely going to be a lot of tuning needed. And obviously like I didn't really find any gear on my playthrough, which it sounds like they've really upped the amount of currency you find. Because I found one orb or something, if that. And I was like...
about crafting. And like...
Yeah, I would love you to talk about it.
I know you can't really discuss it because like you haven't played a recent builds, but
you can tell me about
happy to tell my experiences about it. So yeah, they massively buffed the amount of transmutes, augments you get, regals somewhat, and exalts a lot. I found like 7 exalts, maybe 8 in 1.5 acts.
Wow.
Which is like it feels like, oh, they've gone full Diablo mode. Everyone gets sets raining on them. It's like, no, we just kind of have to reframe how what we think of an exalt is. We think of an exalt as like an endgame rare currency from Path of Exile 1, even though it's not really at this point. But it's exalts are like an augment now, right? they're a shiny augment, and that changed. It was amazing. I had so much fun thinking about which magic items I had were good enough to ascend to rares so that they could become like these priceless artifacts that my character would use for quite some time. And then like, where did I spend those exalts? It was like that, though they were way more common, they were still limited in a, like that whole resource system was still limited in a way that I really was considering like, ooh, okay, where do I put this? Like the weapon's a really good idea, but what if the next weapon I find has a better implicit? That's going to make it really like, this might lock me in for longer than I want.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you know what? Jewelry is really rare. If I go for this ring, then I can use that ring for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then and rings are also vendoring for a lot of gold. So I can vendor all the other rings I get. And then I'll have tons of gold. But buy this other, I really need better boots. So I can buy a bunch of boots. Like, that whole process was so fun.
What was the gold experience like? Were you like, oh, I need farm more gold, like I need more gold, or were you like you had enough gold for what you needed?
Yeah, so I never had enough gold, but there is this constant pool of what do you vendor things for gold or do you vendor things for transmute and regal shards?
Hmm.
And that is definitely something I want you to pay attention to when you're playing, everyone, because they're all parts of the puzzle. Like you don't want to just be using gold or you don't want to just be
Yeah.
disenchanting. I did the way I ended up feeling like I played was I initially mostly vended for gold, so that I could buy things from the vendors to fill out slots, right? Like to get that next weapon tier upgrade or to get the missing jewelry that I needed or to upgrade flasks and things like that. And then once I felt like I was starting to get to a good point, maybe like a few zones or halfway through Act 1, I was focusing more on disenchanting to get transmute shards and then certainly later regal shards. Regal shards become a huge priority. There'll
Yeah.
be interesting, and then again later on down the line, especially with trade, there'll be this tear between, okay, do we disenchant for regal shards because those are a big bottleneck, you really want a lot of those, or do we like trade these rares to other players? Is this good enough to trade to another player, or do I want to disenchant it for that crucial regal shard?
Did you find
So
essences?
yeah, I was going back and forth. I was trying to get more gold so I could get like this double socketed weapon.
Yeah.
I was actually buying socketed items from the vendor to grind into the socketing currency, which surprised the devs.
Oh.
They were like, "Oh, we didn't think of that."
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, because like each socket disenchanted for a shard of the I can't remember what it's called, socketing currency, which
Yeah.
you need 10 shards to create one.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, if I buy like 5 random weapons for a couple hundred gold each, it's actually a really good way to get this and add this second socket to my current weapon. It's like, so I don't know
Wow.
if they'll change how you approach that, but just like things like that, I was thinking about, and really, I was more engaged in the gearing system than ever
And
before.
quick
I'm
quick
very
question.
curious to see how trade changes it.
That was the socketing
Yeah.
thing to increase sockets on gear, not to increase socket on gems?
Yes. I didn't find a single jeweler's orb. Like I didn't find any of those.
Yeah. Because
I
I
think
know
they don't
he's
kick in until a bit later.
Yeah, because I know he said ascendancy items, like they increase in sockets with like your item level, basically. Like your average item level or something
Oh,
like that.
you're talking about ascendancy skills,
Yeah.
skills granted from your ascendancy tree. Yeah, they just recently mentioned that they level up with your character, which is cool.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming there's still the jeweler orb for gems.
Yes, and those are to add more sockets for the support gems. Yeah, I'm specifically talking about sockets on gear, which are for your runes,
Yeah.
and later on the cores, soul cores.
Yeah.
Which
Did
those
you
are how you add resist to gear and damage to your weapons.
did you find many runes slash essences at all?
Yes, I found lots of runes, and I started to find lots of essences in Act 2. Yeah,
Oh, cool. Wow. Early.
I felt like they really thought it out because like I started to find essences around the exact time that I started to need them. Because I was like, I need to start doing a little more with crafting. I need to start being a little bit more specific to solve my problems. Because like, oh, I really need attributes, or I really need certain resistances, or certain things. So, or my build's a bit more defined now, so I kind of want certain damage types. So I found that those essences started dropping right around there, and
Right.
I have a pretty good number of them in the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a lot of fun. I'm very excited to like just immerse myself in that crafting gear progression system,
Yeah.
maybe more than anything else, because
Um
like that's such a big part of the game and it's
I,
done so well.
I don't know if you've seen, but they've GTD have done a last minute beta before the early access. And I don't know how you feel about this, but because of this beta, loads of things are leaking now, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, okay, bummer.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. I feel like that
Is
might have
there like a
been.
specific thing that's come out of that you're mentioning
I
it for, or
No, I'm trying to like avoid it, but
I
I got a
yeah,
list of
same.
what's being leaked. So it's like Ascendencies are out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like at this point that stuff is either going to get leaked or data mined, so it's up to you to avoid it.
Yeah. To be fair,
Or to follow creators that don't post that sort of stuff.
especially if they're launching with not being able to change ascendancy anyway, ascendancies, like just like what is on each ascendancy, is something I wouldn't mind GGD posting anyway.
I think they should put the passive tree out and ascendancies the day
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, that'd
It's
be
a
cool.
fun thing for us to engage in, and when there's server issues, us being able to plot our passive skill trees will be a very, very nice backup plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I'm definitely not against that. I would like, yeah. That's pretty much the only things I want to see. I don't want to see like all the items, uniques, and stuff like that. Like the
No,
favorite
definitely not.
thing to do is to find a unique, and I'm like, what is this? Oh, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
When everyone's like hype spamming their uniques at each other in chat and
Yeah,
linking them and posting them on Reddit and everything. Oh, so fun. So fun.
I love it.
Yeah, we haven't really had that in a big way in a long time, I feel. Like even new league uniques are not really
Yeah.
getting much excitement these
Do you
days.
remember back in the day when the Passionates would say added 11 new uniques and people would just be
Yeah.
like posting them first, like, is this one? And people are like, no, that's old. What do you mean?
That's yeah. You always get that people posting some unique that's been out for like 6 months or something, or 2 years, but it's just like some obscure kind of piece of junk. So people are like,
Yeah.
"This is new. I've never seen this before." Even me, at this point, I'm like, I know most of the Path of Exile 1 uniques, but at the same time, I still see stuff. I'm just like, I haven't seen that one before.
Yeah. It's just such a big
Actually, just a
game.
piece of garbage.
One of my
Yep.
favorite moments in PoE 1, I was doing Path of Exile University and Gucci was in my channel, one of the literal best Path of Exile players. And I was explaining like some basic thing and he was like, wait, what? And I was like, you're like so many
Yeah.
hours for you. That's great.
You can be the best. You can be the best Path of Exile player and still like learn something new constantly, and that is ultimately why we've fallen in so much love with it. I'm sure that's one of my big things. Is like I can each new season, each time I log in, I'm sure to be learning something new. So if you love that process and embrace that process, you have a really good time.
I learn new stuff every league. And also like you have to relearn things and remember things. It's just crazy big game.
And now
I
we have
love
to
that.
unlearn some things we know as well too. Ziz.
That's what
Like
I've
how we
been
engage with monsters and stuff, and what an
peop
exalt means.
people have been asking me to make more videos for PoE 2 with tips and stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know like what is the final thing? Like what did they end up with? That's why I really wanted to ask you about like portals and logout. Because when the last
Yep.
time I was playing, you could portal out of bosses, but it was like a channel time. So like there's so
Yeah.
many things I don't know what the current state is.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I hope they go back to it, but
Yeah, me
we'll
too.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Is there any other topics you wanted to talk about?
Literally so many. I am very curious as to how trade is going to change, like the gearing, crafting, progressing system. Because, like, so a big thing for Path of Exile 1 has been like you find a Chaos Orb, you never use it while leveling because of its endgame trade value, right?
Yeah.
Like, it is a thing that is far better to spend via trade. And that extends to, I would say, most currencies in Path of Exile, especially because. Especially now because they're easily convertible into each other. So if you spend all of your alterations while leveling,
Yeah.
well, those could easily be turned into chaos via the exchange. So you're also still doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's not the right thing if you have fun, but it still is. It's the economically wrong thing. So, like, I am wondering what sort of role that plays in either assisting or, hurting this system. Because I was just saying how much I really enjoyed, like, how the crafting felt.
Yeah.
And I do think the trading aspect could really play well in that. But I am also unsure of, how that's going to play out. It's not something they can test, right? It's
True.
outside of the small betas, and that really doesn't test it. I'm wondering, like, it plays very well solo self-found, but I also love trade so much.
Yeah,
So,
and we recently got the currency auction house. Like, did you like that? And would you like a bigger auction house with items, or do you like it just
yeah,
being currency?
I would. Yep, I love the currency exchange. To me, it solved so many things. I enjoy Path of Exile 1 way more with its addition, and a lot of the frustration points I had came down to gaining access to content at endgame, which is solved by the currency exchange because you can more easily exchange into those / get the resources you need, and the crafting system, which I really enjoy, being frustrating through UI. I think like frustration should never be done through UI. Frustration's a useful tool for like motivating gameplay. Like you're frustrated because these monsters are, hurting you. That's a fun thing to solve. Frustration because like people don't respond to you or the trade UI is balked or whatever. That is not a fun kind of frustration. So currency exchange is amazing. I would extend it to more things personally. I mean, there is something lost by less interactions with other players. It's cool to interact with players over gear. I will say though, the currency exchange solved like 90% of the issues.
Yeah,
The
I
gear trading
agree.
is infrequent enough and personal enough that it's kind of fine how it is.
I like it how it
So
is
they
for
don't
sure.
really need to.
Yeah.
But if I was in charge though, I'd do it all through some. exchange system.
I was very against it, but I think the clever solution of gold, like gold is so good in that you can't trade or get more gold.
So funny.
They actually have to play the game to get gold. It fixes so many issues with like
Yeah.
bots. Because like it's so
Yeah,
weird. Like you
you
would have to
can't-
have a bot
bot
farm
can't-
gold and then go bot the auction house. Like it is weird.
you can't bot gold for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gold being just like a way to tie playing the game to access to certain things to restrict / bottleneck certain things like currency exchange is good. And I mean that might be one of the biggest solutions in the end is the fact that gold is very useful in Path of Exile 2.
Yeah.
So if the exchange costs gold, which it does, then
Yep.
you know you still effectively make a choice because any gold you spend changing some of your crafting resources into another type of crafting resource
Yeah.
could have instead been spent buying an item or
No, for
gambling
sure.
for an item or respecing.
I remember I did think the auction house was a little too powerful though, because like as soon as I ended
For
my
sure, it's power
stream,
creep.
because you can't really do this on stream because then everybody starts copying you, I would just be like buying and selling exalted orbs. So I'd be like, I'd buy exalted orbs for 30 chaos and I'd be selling them for 45. So by the time I've sold 3, I had 1 extra exalted orb for free. And I was just like doing that. And I like recorded and showed people later, but I didn't want to expose it while I was doing it. But I made like 50, 60 exalted orbs first 2 days. I was like,
it's
great.
I mean, there's lots of room for arbitrage. It was also the first league it was ever added, so
yeah, takes people a bit
and
to
even understanding ratios had a bit of a hurdle, like understanding how the ratios work.
Oh yeah, I definitely set up some scam ratios. I'm like, I shouldn't be able to do this, but I can.
So I think a lot of that stuff's been improved with the UI improvements, especially early league. It was quite rough.
Yeah.
It works quite well now, and yeah, there's always gonna be arbitrage. I think it's kind of fun. Some people love that.
I mean, it's part of the reason why I was against it because I'm like, people like me are going to do shit like this, and I don't think that's a good thing. But I will do it.
Me.
Yeah, because this is how I made WoW money. Like I was like the richest person on my server, on Deathwing, and all I did was like because in the first version of WoW there was no auction house tax, I think. So I would buy all the dream foil for 3 gold and just relist it for 20. And I'm like, cool, I'm making just randomly 17 gold per stack of dream foil now.
But in Path of Exile, you have to play to earn the gold to do that.
Exactly. It's way better.
You can only do it to a certain point.
It's way better. Some things were really cheap.
I actually worried. Sorry.
Some things were really cheap. It's also more of a hardcore problem than softcore because it was used so little comparatively.
Yeah, small market means a lot more arbitrage opportunities.
Yeah,
it's just like literally no one trading for something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big thing. It was the arbitrage rates were much closer in softcore.
100%.
But oh god, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Something.
Arbitrage.
Lost it. Arbitrage. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
It'll come back to me. Yeah. Oh no, it's gone.
That's not good. Gold. Talking about gold.
Lots of excited about the gearing and crafting and economy and stuff like that. I'm very excited to see how the economy plays out. Like what things will be valuable. I think like after a couple days, like any leveling gear is going to be so sought after. Like 10% move speed boots, and all that stuff, because everyone's going to be wanting to level all the different classes, right?
Yeah, true.
Everyone wants to play everything. It's going to be fun, like stashing items and deciding what I can afford to sell or what I really want to keep.
Did you end up using Geed a lot?
The gambler guy, I didn't end up in the recent one, but I was kind of starting to get to the point where I was being tempted.
Yeah.
It was a combo of me not having quite enough gold and focusing more on disenchanting to get crafting resources. But at a certain point, I think you will. And there was definitely times where I was like starting to want to do that for certain items, especially like I was like getting frustrated with my 10% move speed boots. So I would have next act probably started gambling for boots if I didn't find an upgrade or craft an upgrade. I was buying white boots and transmuting and stuff.
Oh, that sounds spicy. I'm so excited. You're getting me so excited for this. And I don't know, in the version you were playing, did they have like the tier 5 rares and stuff that they were talking about?
Yeah, that doesn't really kick in until a little bit later though.
Can you tell me like what's the visual component there? That's one thing I didn't really catch. Like, does it say like this is a tier 5 rare?
Yeah, I don't know that I can tell you specifically because, like I said, Act 1 and 2, it's not really a thing. Your stuff's all kind of the same. Like, there's different things that you could mean by tier. There's like the tiers of items themselves, but also you're talking about the affix kind of quality system.
Yeah,
It
because
doesn't really like make sense for that to be a thing in Act 1 and 2.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds
Yeah.
so exciting to me. So for those that aren't 100% sure what I'm talking about, they're
Mhm.
sort of doing a version of the smart loot that I've always wanted, which
Yep.
is
Exciting.
it's a little bit similar to the way Graveyard worked, where like if an item is tier 5, like it might not be able to roll the worst affixes, it might not be able to roll the lowest tier of a mod, so that the thing you're getting is actually likely very good.
Chat saying it says tier 1 to 5 in brackets. So it's an unidentified item. So it'll say like, it'll be like a rare,
We can
so-and-so
sell an
boots.
ID!
And
That'll be
then
so
it'll be
fun.
like tier 5. Yeah, I mean, there will probably be some tier 5 gambling. Also, it'd be
Yeah.
really funny when there's like, you get a tier 5 and it just rolls like Thorns and Light Radius and a bunch of trash. It's
Yeah.
but it rolls them really well. Except the smart loot system, like that'll obviously be super unlucky when that happens, but the smart loot system does take into account like affix types as well and synergies, I'm
That
pretty
sounds
sure.
so fun.
So it's not just like how high they rolled as well.
Were you a big D2 player?
You can't roll Light Radius? There's no Light Radius?
Well, he did
No
say
Light
that
Radius
that
rolls?
most likely would be removed.
Oh, good.
But
Good.
yeah.
Just kind of it's the classic meme stat though.
Yeah, I know. Were you a big D2 fan?
Yes, but I don't hold it to some sort of unattainable kind of
Yeah.
standard. I think it's aged so poorly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. The only thing that I like, it's so weird. I also like, everybody hates me for saying this, but I really wish you couldn't see the art on unique items until you ID'd them. Like, that was such a fun thing for me, like selling
Yeah,
unID
that's unhinged.
jewelry. I think that's so
That's a bad
cool.
take. That's cooked take.
I loved selling unID drinks.
I love when you see what the art is before you identify it, and you're like, I know what this is. Or right, because that's the one I think it is, isn't it? Ooh, it's a wolf. It's a wolf head.
But it's so cool when you identify it and it's a shit one, and then once it is the good one, you're like, yes, yes.
you get that moment when the item drops. I think that's better when it drops. Yeah.
I know it's an unpopular opinion. I love it. I'm allowed bad takes.
Yes, everyone's allowed their own. There's several of their own bad takes.
Hi, JP.
It is your fundamental right.
Yeah, I liked the Ezekiel question for the podcast. It was good.
Yeah. That was like about the idea of making Path of Exile 2 more difficult.
Yeah,
which like I thought the framing of the question was like slightly incorrect, but it was still a really good question. Yeah. Because it's not that it was like really a conscious choice to make PoE more difficult, but it kind of was allowed to happen by the fact that they were making it more accessible.
Yeah.
So they were allowed to make it more difficult in ways that are actually fun, which is gameplay.
Yeah, I definitely want, especially boss fights, to be a lot more engaging and stuff. Like, that's my least favorite thing of PoE 1.
Yeah.
I think Ubers and hardcore are in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. Path of Exile 1 endgame's gotten really good. They've got a lot to build on from that. Will we have loot filters in PoE 2? I feel like it's no, right? The answer's no initially.
Surely we have some sort of basic built-in one, but I believe NeverSync does not have access to anything, which is kind of crazy to me. I kind of wish NeverSync would have gotten access, give us some sort of starter filter.
NeverSync said 3 weeks, so not right at the start of the beta, which I think like like, I know this is like almost meme tier comment, but we won't need loot filters right away.
Yeah.
But that's missing the point of loot filters, in my opinion, or part of the point, which is to make the items look better, like to look more satisfying. Because I was getting exalt drops and they look the same as any other currency drop, the same size, same font, same color. I want them to be bolder and a bit bigger and glow, right?
I definitely want that early.
That's my favorite thing about my filters is like when a divine drops and it's like,
yeah. It's one of the main criticisms I have for Last Epoch is the fact that like their loot filter is really good, but they don't have a way to make it tink. Like when the item has a white background and a red text and it goes like boom, I'm like, oh, my ting.
Yeah, they should expand upon that stuff. But I do love that you can do the in-game tinkering of small changes with that, which Path of Exile 1's loot filter is way too complex to really do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that would be a cool thing in Path of Exile 2 to be able to just be like,
maybe,
oh, I just want to adjust what currency looks like when it drops in-game.
And I remember
that probably won't happen.
My first mirror was just like brown text, and I almost missed it.
Wild, wild, yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my first mirror drop that I know of, at least, was
Yeah.
yes, was well highlighted with the sounds and the glowing and everything. Screen size text going, dopamine
Imagine
activate.
imagine at the end of the league if it just gave you this description. These are the things that dropped that you didn't pick up.
That's so cruel. That's something
Uh,
Chris would have implemented back in the day. Chris Wilson loves that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Like making the
Um,
players suffer like that.
I remember Chris told me once that they were going to do a 1st of April joke. That every transmute showed up as a mirror on the divine filter, but the community was really angry that 1st of April. I think it was streamer queue. So they were like, maybe we don't do that this
We better
Christmas.
not. Maybe don't do that. Yes.
Yeah. And there is actually something in the game. Not everybody knows this, and it sounds like a joke, but it isn't. It's there is actually a way to show transmute as mirrors on your filter in Path of Exile, and it's actually an item. I can't remember what it's called. It gives insanity. Is it Inspire's Edge?
Oh yeah,
And it actually has really fucked up effects. That they're all cosmetic, and nobody ever
Super freaky.
uses the item. It's a reference to what's the guy who made Cthulhu called?
Oh, dude, I'm disappointed that I can't think of it off the top of my head because I love the
Lovecraft. Yeah, it's a Lovecraft item. So
Lovecraft
the effects that it can do is it can randomly play the level up or death animation, including the sounds. It can randomly send out a global alert. I haven't seen this in years, but sometimes you would see has entered the fishing pier when moving zones. And then the worst thing it can do, it can make in one zone every transmute appear as a mirror.
God, that is
Yeah.
straight up gaslighting the player there.
Yeah. So
pretty freaky.
That was pretty funny. I love that that's in the game, but like nobody ever wears the items, so it doesn't really happen. But
yeah, imagine if they made that item like good. It would be problematic.
Yeah,
it needs to be not good for an item like that. So you can just play it for memes.
Apparently the global animation only appears to the person wearing the Inspire's Edge. That's fun.
Yes. Yeah. So they're like in a party and they're like, guys, what was that? What are you talking about?
You're going insane.
I mean, there's definitely been some new player who didn't know about the item.
Yeah.
Just whacked it on.
It's Inspire's Edge. I really wanted them to fuck with us a little bit more during Delirium because the league was about going insane. So what I was hoping they would do would be something like, if you've been in your hideout AFK for a bit, that if your cursor moves again, you sit back down, the voice goes like, back so soon? Something like that, like that your character is starting to go insane. I think that would have been really fun.
Dude, some of his stuff was already borderlining. Like, I feel like a bit uncomfortable for some people. I'm like,
oh yeah,
no, that'd be a bit much maybe.
They actually ended up removing quite a lot of the voice lines. There were some like
yeah, they were a bit too dark.
There were some that were some were removed before the league came out that were like, you have no friends and stuff like that. And then
bit too close to home maybe.
And another one, and this was like at the start of the pandemic, one of the lines, this did not get removed. It did get removed later, but it was like, they're all sick and dying and it's spreading. And I remember asking Chris, I was like, is this because of COVID? And he was like, probably. Like, I don't know. It was on a podcast. It was funny. So yeah, there were a lot of borderline things and an interesting story there. I used to change my sub alert to mechanics or like voice lines from the league that I was playing. So Viro put up loads of sub alerts, but they would all be negative. Terrible. So every time someone subbed, it was like, nobody loves you. And I was just like, eventually Viro was like, by the way, you look depressed. Are you okay? And I'm like, please change the voice lines. They're ruining me.
It's fun to do the like PoE game sounds for that sort of thing, but they got to be like not happening in game, or it's just too much.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Especially when your viewers are like, "I thought that was for me." Like you play the Exalt drop sound whenever.
Yeah, that's actually why I always use different sounds for my Tink and stuff, so that people don't think it's theirs.
Yeah, when we used to have trade whoops and we could set them different, that was a good thing to do.
100%.
Like, was that my whoop?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Whoop.
What's a league that you really want to see added in Path of Exile to later on down the line, since they're doing more content before release, which is wild? re-added as the same or a bit changed, or even as like a better take, like a completely different. Who was that boop boop? But me?
Yeah, it
Or
wasn't
you?
me. It wasn't me.
Okay. Now
Um,
I'm being trolled by it.
oh, I don't know. I really like new stuff. Um, maybe more settlers. Settlers, like they've already added a lot of my favorites. That's the thing. Like Sanctum was my favorite.
You just made me
Honestly,
change my answer.
synthesis, Sanctum, and
Mm. Oh, we got Sanctum.
settlers, yeah, are like my favorite. Ooh, see, I really enjoyed, what was the robot league called again? Sentinel. I
Yeah.
That was one of my most enjoyable times playing the game, but not
Really?
necessarily just because of the league mechanic. It was because of the way
Yeah.
recombinators worked. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what
Makes
I
sense.
really liked about it, it was a little bit too powerful, but I really liked the way it made me approach gear. That items weren't just like ruined. I don't think this is a good PoE 2 thing. I think it was a good PoE 1 thing.
Yeah.
But being able to find something like, oh, this is on a good base with a special stat, and the way it made me reapproach the game there, that was really
Yeah.
funny. And I do
Did it
wish
make you care about dropped
recombinators,
items more?
yes, a lot more. And I
Yeah.
want to care about
Well,
dropped items.
yeah, well, that's like a big fundamental change with PoE 2, right? It's
Yeah.
like the fact that we aren't scouring or alteration spamming or able to just infinitely reroll one item without like some significant cost. You're doing more. You're able to still change things like like annuls and chaos orbs,
Yeah.
but you are actually caring a lot about the actual items more. And even very early on, that has a big impact where you're like, you're not just alt spamming some boots or whatever. You're like looking for new pairs of boots.
Yeah.
Because that new pair of boots could be your upgrade, not your changing your ideal base again and again.
Yeah. And hmm.
I was off class gearing a lot more too, actually, as a
Oh,
result
that's
of that.
good. That's good.
Like I wore ES gear on my mercenary. I spec'd some int nodes for a while and then changed out of them so that I could wear some really good ES gear
Oh,
that I found.
that's good to hear. Like I really
That was really
dislike
cool.
Diablo 4's version of Smart Loot. I hate that like on a journey to level 100 character, if I'm a barbarian, I'll find
Yeah.
one or two sorcery pieces of gear and they have a 0% chance of
Yeah.
being good. Last Epoch has done that way of Smart Loot really well, I think, because I still find things for other builds.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It can make sense in limited doses. So like
yeah,
Last Epoch does it where like a few item slots are for your class and they
yeah,
have interesting things for your class on them.
yeah,
So you get mostly those, but occasionally you get something for other classes, and that's fun because
yeah,
then you can find something to inspire your next build.
yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
really good.
I think I guess I have two answers for my own question from before about what league I'd like to see them add. So when you said settlers, you made me think, oh, I really wanted them to add like a mapping team thing that you actually like gear out the exiles and
Oh, like
tinker
a
with their builds and
proper,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, a proper exile sim
I
thing, which
love
is
that.
that's probably a year 3 Path of Exile 2
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I would love that. But I don't know, maybe they'll do something like companions or something like that. When someone asked Jonathan about Animate Guardian, he looked very strange and
I
awkward
know.
and didn't want to answer the question.
I
And why
noticed
is
that.
that?
Mercenary for
Because
sure.
they replaced it with mercenaries? But, like, well, they can't call it a mercenary. They replaced it with some sort
Henchman.
of companion system, henchman, yes, something like that.
Hireling.
Maybe. I don't know. Just to be clear, because people think whenever I say something like this, they're like, he's revealing.
Ziggy knows.
I don't know. It's like there's something going on there. But my other answer is I really want them to do blight, but actually well, because like I want that, like it doesn't have to be like the full lanes tower defense thing, but like a defending a place mechanic.
Yeah.
I think can be really fun where we do, yeah, we build up some defenses, maybe we fight alongside other people who we can gear, combine the ideas. You build a team of defenders who you help gear
Yeah.
and do their builds to synergize with your own, and then you defend your fortress. Maybe once we defeat the pinnacle boss, we take over the tower and we have to defend it from the other factions that are trying to take it off us. Ooh,
Oh man,
something like
dude,
that. That's what I want.
that sounds really cool. That makes me think of a little bit about how I had way overthought Legion when it came out. Like, because I had like a prediction video and I was
Yeah,
like, okay, guys, this is how I think
we do
Legion.
that.
Yeah, I was like, this is how I think Legion's gonna work. There's going to be a huge battlefield, and you choose one side to battle with them, and you have to take out the other sides. And depending on what side you protect, you get different rewards. And I thought it was gonna be this huge, epic battle. Instead, you were just rolling in a circle, and I was like, well, this is shit.
Yeah, it's just right. You mean it was just a pair of shins running in a circle as the head of the characters were
Yeah,
off the
I
screen?
refused to use head into that league. I was like, nope, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rough. Same with like Calandra as well. I thought it was gonna be so different because like at this point, I was
Oh,
really
well, I
into the
mean, everyone
lore.
thought more would happen with Calandra.
Yeah, and I was so into the lore. And for those that
Unfortunately.
don't know, the lore about unique items is that unique items are already mirrored. So there is
Yes.
a core unique out there, right? There is a Combs
There's a
heart
god,
out
a
there.
being
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, what if in Calandra League we can unlock the like actual Combs heart, but for lore reasons, like we would die if we wore them,
Oh.
right? So we would see like we will bring it to Calandra and put it at like a pedestal or in a thing, and we would have like a
Yeah, it's
Combs
like
heart with like
the original.
100,000 life or 10,000 life, right? With 6 link
It's
and no
too powerful.
penalty. But then we can like how like there's the replicas. We can try to make our own version of a replica, right? Like we can try to
Tangled
re-mirror it
Uniques.
and make our own like
Done.
special like craftable unique for that league. I had so high hopes for this. I was like, oh, this would be so cool. But then it was
Are you
a bird.
excited then about the Varlorbs allowing you to change the affix ranges on uniques? That's
Yeah,
pretty cool. And
very,
add the enchantments and stuff.
very excited
Quite cool.
because
It's basically like a unique customization thing.
I was playing Project Diablo 2 lately, and
Mhm.
that fixes all the issues with Diablo 2, and their Valorbs are really cool. It's actually very similar to this.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, sick.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty exciting.
Somebody in chat asked about Scourge, and I think Scourge for PoE 1, while I didn't like any of the rewards, it was very anti-hardcore on the rewards. I think Scourge was probably definitely one of my favorite ways to engage with a league because it ended up being so smooth with like once you knew how it worked, there was no backtracking. Um,
Mm.
and just really smooth. It felt like doing a superhero landing, like go time. It's like better delirium.
Yeah. I think my experience with that, expecting more and not getting it. Well, a lot of people had that with warbands back in the day. Amy mentioned that in chat.
Yeah.
That was everyone thought kind of warbands was going to do more. For me, the one that well, there was two, I guess actually. One was Harbinger. I thought there was going to be a lot more to Harbinger.
Yeah.
Like they were really alluding to more, especially on the lore
Yeah,
side of
I
things.
agree. I agree. And that was another league
But
that
it was cut content vibes for that.
yeah. It's another league that I would have liked to see change over time too. And I've brought this up with Chris on podcast
Yeah.
several times. Where like the last month of the league would be different than the first month of the league. But at least last time I asked them about it, they said they want somebody that starts late to have the same experience as somebody that starts on day one, which
Yeah.
isn't really
I'm
gonna
trying to
happen
get that.
anyway.
Yeah. Maybe that's kind of a thing. I think it also is probably not a great business decision for them,
Yeah,
probably
I
to
think
like
so.
invest that resource when like
Although
less people are going to be interested.
they did start doing that a little bit. There were a few leagues now that have had a decent sized update 3 weeks in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when it happens, but usually it's because it's like some stuff kind of wasn't finished that they were able to do after the fact, you know? The other one was Metamorph. Metamorph was definitely going to have like another boss or something, right?
Oh yeah, that was supposed to have a boss for sure. That was that just felt so unfinished. That was so sad.
It was building up to this whole thing where like you were getting Tane was going to go into some big beast that would fight, but then
Yeah.
just nothing happened. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
And the lore of Metamorph is like the darkest. For those that don't know, every time you fight a Metamorph, like Tane was abused by his former master. So to put revenge, Tane puts a little bit of essence into every Metamorph you create and kill off his former master. So he's literally torturing him for all eternity. So he like dies and respawns every single time you fight a Metamorph. And that's his revenge to his former master that tortured him. This is really
It's an
dark.
efficient way to do that. Just
Yeah.
getting exiles to farm them for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's messed up. But we're definitely the bad guys. We're definitely the bad guys.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That's why when someone asked me earlier about who I think the pinnacle boss is, it's totally Zana. She's the only good person in Path of Exile, right? She's the only goodie. We're gonna fight Zana because we're still evil, even in PoE 2. That's my take.
Isn't that too easy though? Isn't that too obvious? I hope they don't do that.
Probably. I'm half joking, but I don't really expect it to be Zana, but it would fit we're the baddies again.
Yeah, I really hope that somehow Sana rescues us and makes us the good guy.
No. There's no way. You can't fight against our overwhelming compulsion to murder everything and take all the loot.
No,
Like,
but
how can you redeem that? We're
maybe she makes it
irredeemable.
a good thing. She's like, farm these things.
Yes, but that's the justification for every mass murder.
Yeah. Well, we're like
We're only
Dexter.
killing the bad ones.
I'm watching
Yes.
Dexter at the moment, so maybe that's part of it.
Yes. Dexter's a goodie, Ziz. That's right.
He is a
He only kills
goodie.
baddies. He's definitely a goodie. He's not a goodie. Oh my god.
They're bad people, Ziggy.
Yes. The justification's excellent. Good. You'd make a fine exile, Ziz.
Oh no. Shit. That was fun.
Well, I should let you go on to your other things, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a
About that
good time to wrap
Thanks
it
for
up.
the chat.
Thank you for doing this. We should do this more often. This is super fun.
Absolutely. I'd
Um,
like to do more talkies in the beta, especially.
yeah.
There'll be much to talk about.
Guys, this is Ziggy D, literally one of the best sources for whenever you want to figure out how league mechanics work, and just so much new player-friendly content.
Thanks.
Absolute guide, and just like such a like. Honestly, it's inspired a lot of my stuff, like PoE University and stuff, and
Aw.
how I try to explain things to people to make it easy to
Thanks, dude.
digestible. So, big shout
Thanks,
out.
dude. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you wouldn't know Ziz. He's always live, right? You guys can always catch Ziz. You're up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and it's the PoE 2 beta, but you're too tired to get out of bed. You can boot up Ziz. He'll be there. He'll keep you company.
I'll be live 24/7. Awesome. All right. It was a pleasure, dude. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ziz. I'll catch you later. Bye, Ziz chat.
Bye.
Bye.